Alpha mentions that he doesn't have a proper place to store what he's carrying and asks Lepping if he can put the meat in the refrigerator. Lepping, with a melancholic expression, gives permission, although later, in a somewhat disheartened tone, he mentions that perhaps Elizabeth won't show up. At that precise moment, a firm and clear voice interrupts the conversation. Elizabeth asks who said that while extending her hand to take some food, leaving Lepping completely stunned. In disbelief, he watches her closely, trying to confirm if she has really returned. The Queen, with her imposing demeanor, affirms that she has indeed returned, and, without hesitation, asks him if he has something to say about it. At the same time, she mentally urges him to calm down, assuring him that she has already seen everything that happened. She also reveals that she has eliminated the woman who used charm spells, making it clear there is no reason for her to feel uncomfortable with her return. Lepping, reacting immediately, quickly stands up and, with a certain nervousness, confesses that he thought she was angry about what happened that morning and wouldn't return. His words, full of sincerity, reflect the mix of relief and guilt he feels upon seeing her again. Elizabeth responds calmly, saying that she has a lot of patience to deal with such matters. However, inside, she clearly remembers how she had seen him crying alone after her departure. It was precisely that pain that motivated her to give him another chance, trusting that this time she might find a reason to stay by his side. Despite her decision, he remained silent, unable to utter a word. The atmosphere grew heavy, almost suffocating, as an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Suddenly, something stirred beneath Elizabeth's garments, capturing both their attention. A small paw timidly emerged, followed by the full figure of a small golden dragon, revealing itself with a mischievous and curious air. The hero, surprised, pointed at the tiny being while stammering, "What is that?" Just then, the little dragon began sniffing the food on the table enthusiastically, and without hesitation, dove in to devour it with evident delight. Elizabeth patiently explained that she is the golden dragon she found during the treasure mission. But not only that, she also explained that she is her mount and her friend, Amelia. Lepping, with a flash of concern on his face, quickly recalls Amelia and wonders how that little girl could have ended up in such a desolate situation. The doubt torments him as he searches for answers. Elizabeth, in a serious tone but with a hint of sadness, reveals that it was all the work of the Dark Guild. She explains that when she managed to rescue Amelia, she discovered that the young girl had lost all her memories. Even when she used magic to return her to her youthful form, she couldn't recover a single memory. The culprit behind that terrible state had vanished without a trace. For this reason, Elizabeth decides to ask Lepping to help restore Amelia's memories, hoping that together they can reverse the damage. Alpha, who has been attentively listening, suddenly intervenes with a direct question if her memory was also erased. However, before Elizabeth can respond, Lepping sinks into his thoughts. He reflects on how Elizabeth, far from being indifferent to the suffering of the outside world, had repeatedly sent Amelia to fight the Dark Guild. Regretfully, he concludes that he, the so-called legendary hero, has not lived up to expectations. With the weight of guilt on his shoulders, he deeply apologizes to Elizabeth, admitting that everything is his responsibility. The Queen, however, interrupts him firmly. "This is not the time to talk about blame," she says, looking at Lepping with determination. "First, we must focus on helping Amelia recover her memories." As she says this, Elizabeth can't help but think that Lepping's apologies might be related to what happened that morning. In her heart, she begins to believe that perhaps he truly feels something for her, even if he doesn't express it directly. On the other hand, Alpha, with his characteristic air of confidence, mentions that he has experience in the matter of memory recovery. His statement surprises Lepping and Elizabeth, who look at him skeptically. Both can't help but question whether what he says is true and, more importantly, if he really has a solution for this seemingly impossible problem. So, they head to the hall. Amelia is delicately placed on the table. Leaping, frowning, addresses Alpha and directly asks what he plans to do. Alpha, with a calm yet enigmatic smile, asks him not to worry, assuring him that all he needs to do is trust him and let him act. Next, Alpha murmurs something to Wankai. In a firm and determined voice, he explains the details of the plan they are about to carry out, emphasizing the importance of each step. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, visibly uneasy, can't help but voice her concern. "Are you sure this will work? If it doesn't, maybe it's better not to try. We can't afford to waste valuable time," she comments in a tone mixing doubt and urgency. However, the sacred sword, radiating an aura of confidence, intervenes firmly. "There's nothing to worry about. Everything is perfectly prepared," it assures, with an authority that calms Elizabeth, though not entirely. At that moment, the dog and Alpha, with calculated gestures, adopt an intimidating posture and direct their gazes toward the little dragon, saying that if he doesn't cooperate, they'll have no choice but to eliminate him. They threaten in unison, their words echoing throughout the hall. The little dragon, scared and unsure of what to do, quickly retreats, hiding in its secret hideout. After that, Elizabeth, somewhat disappointed, asks if that's all they have to offer. Alpha replies yes and mentions that the last time he recovered his memories through fear, though he doesn't seem entirely convinced as he recalls that method. Upon hearing those words, the queen, visibly upset, strikes them with her energy-filled hands. In a critical tone, she exclaims that this approach is boring and basic, something she wouldn't expect from them. Alpha, ashamed, apologizes for having resorted to that method before, but adds that it was the only thing that brought back his consciousness at the time. As he reflects, he wonders if this time they could find a less drastic and more effective alternative. At that moment, Elizabeth gently takes Amelia into her hands and, looking at her with determination, assures her that she has nothing to fear. She promises to do everything possible to find a way to help her recover her memories, no matter the cost. Just as the tension seems to fill the air, Lepping breaks the silence with a sudden expression of enthusiasm. With a sparkle in his eyes, he exclaims that he knows exactly what to do. So, they leave the house and begin walking toward the hero's plantation, passing through the various crops. Along the way, Lepping mentions that the key to improving memory lies in the brain, and that perhaps, if Amelia eats walnuts to strengthen it, she might recover. Elizabeth, intrigued upon hearing this, asks what exactly walnuts are. Lepping, determined, nimbly climbs a nearby tree. While doing so, he mentions that he thinks he stored something there. Elizabeth watches him from below with curiosity and adds that she has tasted all the fruits he has planted, but doesn't recall any called nuts. Lepping, sitting comfortably on a branch, explains that it's because it was a recent experiment. He confesses that he wanted to try making pastries, so he made a special wish for the fruit tree to grow and produce something different. Unexpectedly, the wish came true, and the tree began to yield unique fruits. Finally, he enthusiastically announces that he found what he was looking for. The young man descends with some fruits in his hand. They are small and round, and he proudly shows them. The queen takes one in her hands, examines it closely, and asks if that strange fruit can really help with memory. Leaping, with a confidence, at least in his world, that's what they say. Excited by the possibility, Elizabeth decides to try it. She breaks off a small piece and chews it carefully. However, her face quickly twists into a grimace of disgust. Complaining, she exclaims that it's bitter and unpleasant to the taste, which elicits a light laugh from Lepping, who seems to have anticipated her reaction. Far from being offended, the hero bursts out laughing and explains that this is not the correct way to eat the nut. With patience, he clarifies that what's actually consumed are the seeds contained within the core of the fruit. He then takes a special tool and with precision cuts the fruit in half, revealing its interior. The queen watches attentively and is completely astonished. Taking in what she sees, she compares the seed to a brain and marvels at the incredible idea of something so complex growing inside the fruit. This discovery leads her to consider Lepping truly worthy of being its creator. Without further ado, he cuts the seed into parts and gives a piece to Amelia and another to the queen. With a smile, he asks if they want to try it, explaining that, while the nuts are raw, it's possible to enjoy their flavor if savored attentively and slowly. The queen, after some thought, decides that the fruit won't have any negative effects on her. However, motivated by the desire to help Amelia, she resolves to eat it. Finally, the three of them prepare to taste the seed together. That moment causes the queen to enter an unexpected state of synchronicity, something no one had anticipated. Transported to a cinema chair, she quickly notices that she has entered a realm. She reflects on the fact that she had almost forgotten the condition of synchronicity. Since they had eaten the seed together, the synchronicity stimulus enhanced its effect, deeply impacting her. Suddenly, her attention is drawn to something on the wall. She wonders if it's her memory and why it's being displayed that way. Before her unfolds her own story, a chapter from the magical world. However, before she can fully understand it, someone shouts that they're both too indecisive and urges them to make things more exciting for her. This sparks Elizabeth's curiosity, and she begins to wonder if there are other people in the realm besides her. Her attention shifts to a version of herself that appears before her, declaring that they already like each other and questioning why it's so hard to admit it. The figure continues, explaining that in her wild world, she would have already taken a more drastic decision. She would have knocked Lepping unconscious with a hammer, dragged him to a cave, and made a baby with him. Another version of Elizabeth mentions that her attitude is rude and that not all worlds are as direct as hers. She reveals that her husband, Lepping, also started from imperial exams, progressing step by step until he reached her side and achieved great feats. This detail underscores the effort and dedication they both shared to achieve their goals. These words cause our queen to reflect deeply and come to a conclusion. All of them are queens of their own worlds, each with unique but equally valuable stories. Another version of Elizabeth explains that, in the world of immortal cultivation, she also faced 81 trials alongside Lepping. After overcoming enormous difficulties and defeating the celestial demon ancestor, they were finally able to be together. Her memories evoke the arduous journey they undertook to achieve happiness, uniting their destinies against all odds. Meanwhile, the pirate version recounts that, in her seafaring world, Lepping knew from the start how to compete with her. Every day, he declared that he wanted to become the Pirate King, an ambitious goal that marked their relationship. However, her story takes an unexpected turn when this version plants her foot determinedly on a chair, rises with energy, and proclaims her truth. She asserts that as a result of their rivalry, Lepping lost to her since she took the great secret treasure in one fell swoop and became the Pirate King. Yet, in an act of honesty with herself, she admits that he probably gave up the treasure on purpose, allowing her to achieve her dream and prove her worth. But now she claims that he can only say sappy things like, "You are my greatest treasure," to console himself, laughing at his attitude. Our Elizabeth observes the whole situation and reflects, assuming that each version of herself, in every world, has a unique way of interacting with Lepping. Ultimately, she wonders where she is. An older woman who seems to be nearby responds that she is in the Elizabeth Theater. a special place where she can observe the stories of the different Elizabeths from other worlds. This leaves the queen somewhat surprised, though she quickly reacts and questions who the woman is. The lady calmly replies that she is the common Elizabeth, the one from the normal world. This leads the queen to ask another question. How did both of them get there? The lady responds that she doesn't know the exact details, but she knows that every Elizabeth has their own path to reach that place, the prerequisite being that their relationship with Lepping reaches a certain depth. At that moment, someone interrupts by shouting, exclaiming that they've argued long enough. The voice urges them to hurry up and have children so the tribe can grow faster. Another person exclaims that they've missed a great opportunity and wonders if they're capable of synchronizing their thoughts to be on the same wavelength. However, Elizabeth pays them no attention and instead questions the development of her relationship with Lepping, wondering how far it could go. Finally, she dares to ask if reaching this point means she has already achieved that level. The lady categorically denies that idea and explains that what they have is merely a simple advancement, clarifying that what she holds in her hand is nothing more than a temporary ticket, a symbol of a path yet to be traveled. Meanwhile, the audience can't contain themselves and begins shouting enthusiastically, urging them to kiss as they are too close to each other. They also comment that the emotional development between them is desperately slow and too calm, which creates some discomfort among the spectators. The queen, upon hearing all that, can't help but wonder if her relationship with Lepping is really as bad as others perceive it. Lady Elizabeth calmly responds that it's impossible to please everyone and reminds her that every Elizabeth is the protagonist of her own world. She firmly advises her to simply follow her heart without being influenced by external opinions. She also adds that if it's about tranquility, she's sure no other world story could surpass the serenity of hers. However, when that story was shown, it caused all the other Elizabeths to break into uncontrollable sobs, while for her, those memories were extraordinarily happy, like a treasure she cherishes dearly. The queen, intrigued, asks what kind of story hers was, hoping to understand the reason behind the others' tears. With a nostalgic smile, Lady Elizabeth replies that it was nothing more than an ordinary life, one in which Lepping and she met, married, had many children, and grew old together, sharing every moment as a family. That revelation leaves the young Elizabeth completely flustered, unable to stop herself from imagining marrying, having children, and growing old with Lepping. And with that, we've reached the end of this week's chapter. If you made it all the way to the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this chapter in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so our community can keep growing and we can reach more fans like you. See you in the next video. In the meantime, if you're from the near future, I'll leave you the next chapter and a comic you're sure to enjoy. Thank you for being part of this adventure.